Hello everyone. While it might be difficult to avoid all forms of online tracking if you want to use most internet websites and services, there are ways to avoid most tracking and to mitigate the data collection efforts of companies online. Some of these steps may seem like a bit of effort, but it is worthwhile to preserve your privacy online. Along with the ethical issues surrounding privacy and manipulation that I discussed in the previous video, there is also always the risk of data breaches that result in your personal information falling into the hands of scammers and hackers. Even without a data breach, there are no guarantees that some data brokers may not just sell your data to less than reputable companies. So let's get started with some of the ways that you can protect your privacy online. I'll start with the basics and work my way up. Number 1 is to make sure all of your accounts are secured with strong and unique passwords. Preventing tracking is pointless if folks can just stroll into any of your online accounts. A strong password has a minimum of 14 characters and a random mix of upper and lowercase letters, numbers, and symbols. Don't use the same password twice. Number 2 is to use good internet security software. This is also pretty basic, but all of the tracking protection on the internet is not going to help you if you have spyware installed on your device or PC, or if you get hacked. There are several good internet security suites out there. I have been using Bitdefender for a while now. That's not a promotion, just my opinion. I'll add a link in the description with a comparison of the major options. Number 3 is to use a VPN. At the most basic level, a VPN prevents companies tracking you by your IP address and conceals your location, or at least the location of your internet connection. If you have GPS enabled and accessible to apps and websites, your location will still be exposed. A VPN will also not stop tracking methods such as cookies, pixels, or browser fingerprinting, but it will conceal your IP and location and act as your base layer of protection. Beware of some free VPNs. As I discussed in my video on preventing identity theft, there are some free VPNs that are simply scams designed to steal all of your data. Be very careful to use a reputable VPN. I like Proton VPN. Again, just my opinion, that's not sponsored. I will add a link to a comparison of VPN options in the video description as well. My 4th recommendation is to turn off your GPS or location services, or at the very least deny all apps and software access to your location. But that doesn't always work. It's easier to just keep it turned off. The next step is to ditch the Google search engine. As I talked about in the last video, Google is a tracking and data collection behemoth, and the search engine is a primary tool that they use to do it. DuckDuckGo is a great privacy-focused alternative that doesn't save your searches, collect your data, or try to track you. Google pays out enormous amounts of money every year to be the default search engine on nearly every platform out there, but it's worth making the effort to go through a few clicks and change the default search engine of all of your browsers to DuckDuckGo. For example, on Apple devices, you simply go to Settings, then Safari, and then to Search Engine, and then select DuckDuckGo. When using PC browsers such as Firefox, you can also easily change your default search engine in the settings. On Android devices, I simply advise downloading the DuckDuckGo or Brave browser and avoiding the built-in Chrome browser altogether. Following on from this, step number 6 is to use privacy-focused browsers to block trackers and prevent fingerprinting. There are 2 general approaches to preventing browser fingerprinting, with the first being to make your browser appear as generic as possible, while the second approach ignores uniqueness and instead focuses on spoofing a different browser fingerprint every time you open a new browser window. The second approach is more common now, although browsers such as Tor still work on the principle of making every Tor browser appear exactly the same and as generic as possible. That is why it is recommended that you do not change the size or any other setting of the Tor browser when you use it, so that you look just like every other Tor user. Most other browsers prevent fingerprinting by spoofing a different fingerprint with every instance of the browser, or by blocking fingerprinting technologies and companies known for fingerprinting altogether. Mozilla Firefox is one browser that prevents fingerprinting by blocking technologies and companies associated with fingerprinting. Firefox has long been my favorite desktop browser due to strong privacy protection and tracking prevention, and settings that can be easily customized to create the exact level of privacy protection that you're looking for. I will add a link to the Firefox website in the video description, which describes the tracking protections available in the desktop version of Firefox. If you have an Apple device or Mac, Safari also has good tracking and privacy protection available. For example, you can now go into the advanced settings for the browser and enable advanced tracking and fingerprinting protection. It is automatically enabled for private browsing, but I highly recommend that you enable it for all browsing. If you are using an Apple device or a Mac, Safari's privacy features have become quite impressive. With little tweaking, Safari can rival some of the dedicated privacy browsers, as long as you regularly clear the history and website data. Safari does allow some information to be stored from session to session unless you select block all cookies, which will cause quite a few websites to malfunction. As noted previously, DuckDuckGo is a good private search engine that doesn't store any of your searches or data or attempt to track you, and it is also a good mobile browser that is available for both Apple and Android devices. The DuckDuckGo browser will automatically handle cookie pop-ups for you and block tracking cookies on all websites. It works best if you use the Close Tabs and Clear Data button after every session, or enable the option to automatically clear data in the settings. Brave is a privacy-focused browser that is available on desktop and your mobile devices. I like the mobile version on my devices, but if you want a desktop browser that requires very little adjustment for maximum privacy settings, Brave may also be the browser for you. It is very customizable so that you can get the settings exactly the way you like them, but it is also great with the default settings. I would suggest upgrading the trackers and ad blocking setting from standard to aggressive. It may break some websites, but I haven't had any real issues with that so far. I use Brave on my mobile devices for an ad-free browsing experience with no cookie pop-ups and very good fingerprinting protection, automatic cookie blocking, and other protections. I tested the fingerprinting defense on coveryourtracks.eff.org a few times within a few minutes and got a different result every time, which is a good indicator that a random fingerprint is being generated each time the browser is opened. With browsers that produce a different fingerprint with every new instance to avoid tracking, using Cover Your Tracks might not provide a full picture. It can tell you how good your tracking protection is, but may show that your browser is unique or nearly unique or easily fingerprinted. If you get a different result on the uniqueness of your browser's fingerprint a few times in a row, that is a good indicator that your fingerprinting protection is working. But if you are not sure, a great way to check is to visit YouTube in a new browser window, while you're not logged into any Google accounts in your browser, of course. And if you get a blank slate, no recommended videos, despite having used YouTube in the past, it is a great sign that your browser has good tracking protection. Also, if you get security alerts for signing in on a new device when you sign into your Google account, even though you don't have a new device, that is a great sign that the trackers are being fooled. I will also add that I don't really recommend using Google Chrome. It is just too much hassle to go through all of the ad tracking and privacy settings. Basic privacy and security options that are automatically enabled in many other browsers that we have discussed previously all has to be done manually in the settings, and the results are still underwhelming. If you have an Android device or phone, just download Brave or DuckDuckGo and set it as your default browser. While all of the privacy protections discussed so far will prevent companies from tracking your browsing habits, they won't stop apps that you have downloaded from collecting data about you and sending it back to data collection companies. Which leads me to tip number 7, which is to screen your apps carefully. As I noted in my previous video, Apple App Store and Google Play Store both now provide privacy information about apps. Check this information before downloading and installing an app. It is also a good idea to go through all of the apps that are currently installed on your devices, especially ones that you may have downloaded before privacy information became available. A great way to keep track on Apple devices is to turn on the App Privacy Report. You can turn this on by going to Settings, then Security and Privacy, and then enabling the App Privacy Report. While you are in your privacy and security settings, double-check that your location services are turned off and that any requests by apps to track you are automatically denied. When the App Privacy Report is enabled, you will be able to see which apps are accessing data and sensors, which apps are accessing the internet, along with website network activity and the most accessed domains, and the apps or websites which access those domains. For example, turning on App Privacy Report alerted me to an app that I had been using on my devices for years, since before the app privacy information became available, which was tracking me and transmitting data constantly. I had a look at the app's privacy information on the App Store, which was not good, so bye-bye Free Calculator app. Alternatively, you can go into the app settings and deny all internet access. But with some of these apps, I would just rather have them off my device altogether. Unfortunately, Android doesn't have a similar feature to the App Privacy Report on Apple. You have to go through each app individually and check the settings. You can adjust the permissions for each app and turn off background data usage, but unfortunately it is also trickier to deny apps internet permissions altogether, which you can do easily in iOS. The best solution is to be very selective about the apps that you download to your Android device, unless you are prepared to use something like NetGuard to deny specific apps access to the internet. However, this solution can cause conflicts with your VPN and cause a whole other set of problems. On your PC, having good internet security software installed will prevent any spyware finding its way onto your computer, including potentially malicious browser extensions, and keep an eye on the traffic coming in and out of your computer for anything suspicious. You can also deny any software access to the internet by adjusting the firewall. While it is also important to install security software on your phone and other devices, unfortunately most do not have the same level of features on mobile devices as the computer version. Next, it is important to disable personalized ads and ad tracking on all of your devices and accounts. Having personalized advertisements enabled is just inviting companies to track you, although at this point you are at least making it quite a bit more difficult. Especially if you use Facebook, Gmail, or anything similar, comb through your settings carefully and disable anything to do with personalized ads, ad tracking, or storing your usage information if possible. While Google doesn't necessarily advertise the extent of their tracking and data gathering activities, they do make it fairly straightforward to take control of that information in your Google account if you know where to look. For example, go to Manage Your Google Account and click on Manage Your Data and Privacy. I set up this account as an example, so the privacy settings aren't great right now. I do, however, have the Maps timeline turned off already. Don't forget to do this if you haven't already done so. You can see that I currently have my web and app activity being saved. Make sure that you turn this off and erase any history that has currently been saved on your account. You may just be surprised the different sources that are used to collect data about you. Next, scroll down the privacy and personalization page a little and check the settings for personalized ads and personalized search results. On the Personalized Ads page, just use the Disable Personalized Ads option at the top of the page. Confirm that you want to disable personalized ads, and then go back to the Privacy and Personalization page and also disable personalized search results. Not that you're planning to use Google Search anymore, but turn it off anyway. While you are on your Privacy and Data Settings page, you can also check any other third-party services or websites that you may have signed into with your Google account and remove them. As an example, I logged into Canva using this Google account. As I discussed in the previous video, this allows both Google and Canva to access more information about me. It's best to avoid connecting accounts. While Google's account privacy settings are relatively easy to navigate, Facebook can be pretty obscure to navigate in terms of disabling tracking and data collection. I have found a pretty up-to-date guide, and I'll add the link in the video description below. When it comes to your devices, disabling personalized ads and ad tracking is relatively easy on Apple devices, but can take a few steps, or really a lot of steps, on Android devices. On Apple devices, go to Settings, then to Privacy and Security. Then go to Analytics and disable all options, and then go to Apple Advertising and disable personalized advertising. In Android, start in the Security and Privacy section of the device settings and make sure that your location is turned off. Then you might have to scroll right down to More Privacy Settings at the bottom of the screen. Start by going to the Ads section and deleting your Android advertising ID, and also turn off ad topics, app suggested ads, and ad measurements in the ads privacy section. Go back to More Privacy Settings and turn off Usage and Diagnostics, and go into Android System Intelligence and clear the data. Also turn off the autofill service. Go through your Permissions Manager and remove any that aren't strictly necessary. Go back to Settings and scroll down to Google Services and Preferences and go into Personalize, using shared data, and disable all of the options. Go through all of your social media and any other accounts and optimize your privacy settings, unless you don't use a particular account very much, in which case just delete it. In a similar vein, don't sign up for online accounts everywhere. For example, when shopping online, only create accounts at shops that you will use very often, and never save your payment info on an account. Choose to check out as a guest on online shopping websites. Data breaches occur quite frequently, and the less data that is saved about you, the less that can be potentially exposed. Don't link multiple online accounts together by using the same email address for multiple accounts. Use a different email address for each account if possible. Except for your most vital online accounts, such as banking, government, any medical accounts, or your mobile phone and utilities. For these, use a secure and private email account, such as Proton Mail, for all of your most essential and sensitive communications. But make sure that you never lose your password, because if you lose access to your account, it can't be recovered. Even Proton can't access anything in your email account. Proton also encrypts your communication and secures your email against tracking. For non-essential accounts and websites that are likely to send a lot of spam, use throwaway email addresses and aliases if possible. For example, I have a Gmail account that I use specifically for watching YouTube, when I want all of my favorite content creators at my fingertips and personalized recommendations, and so that I can like videos and subscribe to my favorite channels. I try not to use the Gmail account for anything else and make sure it isn't associated with any other accounts, such as via recovery addresses or being signed into that account on the Gmail app. This means that my YouTube video preferences can be profiled, but not linked to other parts of my digital life. I also have other Gmail accounts where all spam and other junk mail goes to die. I rarely actually look in there. They're the accounts I use when I want to access resources hidden behind an email address wall, but never for anything remotely important. I have a few other email accounts set up for similar purposes, all unlinked, all set up from different browsers with strong tracking and fingerprint blocking. Just because these are throwaway accounts is no reason to skimp on security and privacy settings. Make sure that you use secure and unique passwords for each one and keep them in a safe place, because using a recovery email address would link accounts and defeat the purpose. Go through and disable personalized ads, ad tracking, and set your history to be automatically deleted. Finally, we have possibly the most intimidating step of all, which is removing your personal information from data brokers. It is possible to do this yourself for free, but be prepared to dedicate a significant chunk of time to the process, and you will also have to repeat it regularly. There are also paid subscription services that will do it for you. I'll add a link in the video description to a comparison of the different services. I'll also add a link to Incogni's comprehensive guide to opting out of the data brokers if you decide to do it yourself. We have covered a lot of information in this video, so I will briefly recap some of the most important takeaways here. Number 1 is to always use strong and unique passwords. Number 2 is to always install good internet security software on all devices. Use a trustworthy VPN. Turn off your GPS or location services on all devices. Switch your search engine to DuckDuckGo and ditch Google. Use a browser designed to protect you from tracking and fingerprinting. Screen all of your apps carefully. Disable personalized ads and ad tracking on all accounts and devices. And avoid unnecessary accounts and don't link accounts together. And opt out of data brokers. Thank you for watching. I hope that you found this video useful. If you did find it useful, please consider leaving a like or subscribing. This lets the YouTube algorithm know that this video was useful to you, so that it may also be suggested to others looking for similar content.